When the topic of who the most disrespected NASCAR driver is right now, a couple names immediately come to everyone's minds. Or should I say two names. First is Joey Logano, as his recent comments defending NASCAR's less than stellar decision making have riled people up to such an extent that they're shitting over all three of his titles. But the fact of the matter is, the guy's still a multi-time champion, and he's played the system to perfection and has found ways to expose it time and time again. And of course, Alex Bowman, whose seemingly eternal status as Hendrick's fourth wheel will always have him at odds with fans who feel he doesn't deserve his ride and should always be on the hot seat, even though the stats show that Bowman is the best fourth wheel Hendrick has ever had. There is another driver, however, who I feel gets just as much, if not more disrespect from fans than those two guys. A driver that has been having a pretty good season, yet almost everyone has remained mute about it, as if they're waiting for him to screw up so they can come out the bushes again. That guy is John Hunter Nemechek. And after racing his way into the All-Star race, beating guys by the likes of Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, and Ryan Preece along the way, I figure it's finally time to talk about this guy and give him his more than overdue credit. So unless you haven't been keeping track of the standings, you may not have realized it, but Nemechek is sitting 18th right now, 17 points below the cut line, ahead of guys like Carson Hocevar, Michael McDowell, Ty Gibbs, Daniel Suarez, and Brad Keselowski. With one top 5 and 4 top 10s to his name, he has been, for all intents and purposes, kept Legacy Motor Club afloat so far this season, as Eric Jones has been struggling to find his groove. I also mentioned in a previous video how he and Eric Jones have kind of reversed their roles from last season, whereas Jones was the guy trying to keep the team afloat, and Nemechek was the one struggling mightily. The funny thing is, however, Nemechek is already on pace to having a far better season than Jones himself had last year. All this talk about how Jones has been, quote, carrying the team, but he struggled to even crack the top 25 in points ever since 2022. Hasn't anyone even talked about that? I don't think so. Again, because I feel people have been ignoring him and focusing all their criticism on his teammate. And it's gotta stop, okay? It's true that John Hunter doesn't have something to fall back on like Logano or Alex Bowman have. Those two being top 10 drivers in the sport right now, Logano being a multi-time champion, and Bowman having tons of fan support by virtue of driving for Hendrick. But on the flip side, bro, people don't have a good reason to discredit John Hunter either, or at the very least not a good enough reason. You know, that whole argument about him being a playoff underperformer, it was kind of valid in the Truck Series, as he kind of had moments where he shot himself in the foot in both 21 and 2022. But once he moved up to Xfinity, he kind of put that argument to rest, as he was a lap and a half away from a title, as well as every other Championship 4 driver for that matter. Another argument against him that people use to disrespect him is that he has a tendency to not deal well with adversity, especially when he has a race-winning car. You know, classic tendency to self-implode the moment one bad thing happens that screws him over because he's so used to running up front, he doesn't know how to act. A very common trait among young Toyota drivers as of late. And it goes away with age, okay? He started to grow out of that and mature the moment he rejoined the Cup Series last year. You never really saw moments of John Hunter just kind of self-imploding or just having a good run and then just self-imploding. You never see much of that in the Cup Series nowadays. But the most common argument that I hear, and I really want to talk about it, is that he is stupid for leaving Front Row Motorsports and joining the Toyota pipeline, only to end up in a worse ride than what he would have hypothetically gotten had he stayed there long term. And look, it's very easy to play the what-if game here from the driver's perspective. But what about the team? Do you seriously think Front Row would have stayed with John Hunter long term? Because remember, back in 2020, Todd Gilliland was still a development driver for them in the Truck Series. And of course, they had Michael McDowell, and no way in hell that team was letting him go. He was their number one guy up until he left for Spire this season. Do you people seriously think John Hunter would have stayed with Front Row Motorsports until 2025? Okay, I'll give you 2021 because they signed Anthony Alfredo to replace him, which was a clear downgrade. But after that, heading into the Gen 7 era, it gets murky. All that, and I haven't even mentioned Zane Smith. And Zane Smith, he almost replaced Todd Gilliland in 23. And considering there was no opportunity for the team to expand to 3 entries yet, as most teams at the time were not selling anything, and the few charters that were available were quickly sold to other teams. The only teams that were selling were Germain Racing and Levine Family Racing, and those charters were quickly picked up by Denny Hamlin and Justin Marks to form 2311 and Trackhouse respectively. So it's very likely John Hunter would have gotten shuffled out for either Todd Gilliland or Zane Smith. Again, it's easy to say he would have stayed with Front Row because of how much better they have been than Legacy overall, but that's because of the Front Row we know today. Revisionist history tells us that John Hunter's decision to leave was the best one, especially since the career path he took ended up with him amassing plenty of wins in the Trucks and Xfinity series. He also made the championship for once in each of those two series, won a regular season title in Trucks, and came pretty close to winning Xfinity as well. And hey, if you want to play the what-if game, guess what? Under a full season format, it's very likely John Hunter becomes both a Truck and Xfinity champion, joining the likes of Johnny Benson, Greg Biffle, and Austin Dillon. So yeah, even if his career path didn't give him the cup ride people thought he would get, me, as well as many others, had him taking over the 19 car at Gibbs after Martin Truex retired. You cannot say it has been a failure, because in the end, whatever opportunity that there is down in Xfinity and Trucks that allows you to compete for wins and championships is 100 times better than staying in the Cup Series just to run 25th every week. But yeah, by now you get the point, and I hope this video sheds some light into John Hunter's fairly solid start to this season so far, as well as why I think more people should talk about him in a more positive way. If you think that way, or you want to add something to it, hey, that's what the comment section's for. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and also please share this video as much as possible, as we're on the road to 1K before the end of the year. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next race.